Welcome to the Daily Cheat Sheet. We are here with our rock stars, all stars, movie stars, Men the Dude Stern and Golan. I don't know, Ramraz.
That's it.
I
No nicknames.
couldn't think of anything in between.
Power swimmer.
For those that are not familiar, obviously, because we didn't bring it up, Golan almost lost his family on a little inflatable dinghy this morning and had to swim 45 minutes to catch them. Thank God you did.
It was awesome. In the end, because my father told me a long time ago, I was in the tsunami in Thailand many, many years ago. We got hit by a wave. I had to have surgery on my eardrum, the whole thing. But my father had taken us to Phuket at that point, and he said, by the way, you're welcome. And he listens to the show, so he'll hear this. And I was like, you're welcome. We all could have died. And he goes, no, you understand, if you die, it's a terrible story. Don't tell that story. If you live, woo, what a story. You're welcome for giving you an amazing story you can share with other people.
We are honored and blessed that you shared it with us, and hello to your father. Hello to everybody's father, and I especially want to say prayers for somebody that listens and helps us with this show, Dave, whose dad is in the hospital. So our prayers are out for you and your family. I do believe in the power of collective prayer, and so I'm one of those. Golan, before we get into the New York, the Trump story of today with Tish James, I want to get, because what happened in Texas yesterday, right? Texas Republicans proved that if Republicans stay together, they could win together. And this is a great story. They didn't give up. They didn't. I said all along, the press, everything that they were facing, it wasn't a great look for Dems. And they won. And yes, Newsom is gerrymandering what's left of California. That's fine. Do what you got to do. Nobody gives a crap. But this Texas thing for Republicans should be the pathway of moving forward, that when we stick together, we win together.
You know, we've talked a lot about the fact that the Republicans, generally speaking, conservatives in general, are a party that likes internal debate, that likes different voices, that likes that kind of the big tent concept of a lot of perspectives. And I often think it's really smart because as I talk about as a screenwriter, I love having a writing partner because I come up with an idea. It's the best idea anyone's ever heard. He'll come up with a great, brilliant idea, but together we'll come up with something neither of us could have come up with on our own. And I feel like that's where they end up a lot of the time. But when it comes to voting, when it comes to having a unified bloc, the idea of staying together, holding firm as a unit is something that also ends up being a side effect, not very strong. And we see it all the time when they're like just barely scraping by, passing stuff that should be blazing through. This is an example of them doing it right. That bundle of sticks versus the single twig, holding fast, passing that redistricting map, hands them that 5 extra seats, as we talked about, and the quorum busting, vanishing act that the Democrats tried to pull off that ultimately I think made them look bad. And as we talked about on a previous show, ultimately was doomed to fail no matter what. So it was just treading water, wasting time, wasting taxpayer money, etc. In the end, this was about legal performance boosting boundaries that, you know, they can call it whatever they want. It was a win.
You know, I think I prematurely said that they passed this about a week ago.
No, we actually corrected you. I think you were gone you were not around, but we actually corrected you. It was the Senate that passed it. So you weren't, it was a very confusing thing. Even when you brought it up and I was trying to read it, both of us go on, we were both reading it and it was a little confusing. The Senate passed it, but it had to go to the House seats in Texas. I don't mean the House in Congress, but the House seats in Texas, which it did today. So there you are.
I'm really glad that they're doing this. I mean, I've said before that I think the entire districting map and the way it's done is terrible for the country. I mean, we should be doing something based on the percentage of people who vote a certain way within an election. I think that would be a better way to do it. Or a grid pattern, which is just random. But I'm glad that they're doing it, and I hope other states do it as well. The most gerrymandered states in the union, in the nation, are all Democrat-run states. And there's a certain level of chutzpah, a certain level of nerve for the Democrats to come out and accuse the Republicans of doing something wrong when the Democrats have been doing this for decades. So fight fire with fire. They're finally taking a page out of Democratic playbook, and every single red state should be doing this until there's a better solution.
Listen, I think you're 100% correct. And Gavin Newsom, the this morning. The Supreme Court, of course, in California broke a rule Golan, one of their own rules, or they changed it. The Supreme Court opened the door Wednesday to plans by Newsom and other Democrats to redraw California's congressional districts, which overrides their actual rule and laws. And they will have a vote on this in November. But to Men's point, this is their last ditch, pretty much, of gerrymandering, is these last 4 seats, because they've done it everywhere in America. There's nowhere in America left on the map for them to actually do this. So he's right.
It's important to note that California claims that they have an independent counsel that does this, but legislators are coming out and saying that they are doing this behind closed doors. They have no idea who's on that panel and what they're talking about doing. So this is as crooked as it comes.
Let me just read this Golan to you. While California law does not allow legislative action on proposed measures until 30 days after it has been introduced, Democrats apparently sidestepped that deadline with a longstanding practice known as gut and amend, taking over, not to be confused with mend, taking over other legislation that has been pending for more than 30 days, erasing the contents and replacing them with the redistricting language.
So yes, okay, that's the California thing, the gut and amend thing is definitely something they're trying to use to bypass taking an existing bill, moving it through the legislature, et cetera. But that's not the thing that bothers me about this. The thing that bothers me about this is there is a legal precedent that is still on the books right now. We're talking about Prop 1 and Prop 20. And what these things mean is that California voters amended the state constitution. This is in 2008 and 2010. And I've talked about this before to create what Men's talking about, the California Citizens Redistricting Commission. Basically, what it means is politicians are not allowed to draw their own districts anymore. It's not allowed. It's literally illegal in the state constitution. The people voted to strip politicians of that power. So Newsom doing this right now is literally going against his own constitution. Any attempt by the legislature or the governor to bypass that commission by like jamming through a partisan map or doing even what Newsom is out loud saying he wants to do right now, quite literally violates the California Constitution itself. So I don't really understand. I get that they can speed it through, but I don't get how they can break that law. Because the state explicitly banned partisan gerrymandering when it handed redistricting to this independent commission. So unless what Mend is saying is even more like turbocharged, that they're doing it behind closed doors and also breaking the law and just not telling anybody about it, I just don't understand how this is supposed to work, how this is supposed to go through.
Golan, I hate to tell you, I'm sorry to disappoint you about this thing called California, where they're not exactly known for following laws. As Mend has brought up many times, it's a state that it's illegal to show ID to vote, that we have at least 2 million illegal voters on our rolls. So the idea that you're going to get any moral clarity or moral compass with the way we do it, it's just not going to happen, Mend. And this is where the Trump administration could come in and pull funding. If I were Trump, I would say right now, you do this, we pull the Olympics.
I think that would be a great idea. Representative who highlighted the shenanigans going on with this redistricting council, her name is Alexandra Mercado.
I like how you go with the Spanish when you say it.
Alexandra Mercado. I think I might be mispronouncing her last name, but she's the vice chair of California State Assembly Committee on Elections. And what she's saying is that they huddled, a whole bunch of Democrats huddled, did all the maps, then handed it to their Republican colleagues less than 24 hours before it was time to vote. And she's saying that they basically, did this in a private room, gave them very little time to either argue or even review what they plan on doing. And she's going to drag them all into court. So God bless that woman for standing up for what's right.
And by the way,
there's precedent for this, by the way. Forget the law. Also, Democrats already tried this once. They sued to challenge the maps. They wanted to gerrymander. This is back in 2011. They wanted to do that. And the California Supreme Court unanimously, by the way, upheld the commission's authority. So the precedent still exists. It stands in their way right now. So it's not even that there's a law in the books that I'm going to okay, I'll figure a way to get around it. They already tried to do this and failed. I do not understand how it's supposed to go through now, unless they do some kind of ballot initiative or a special election where they literally say, before we can even pass this new law, we need a direct vote of the people to dismantle or override the commission system. Well, they are.
That's the whole thing, Golan.
But it's I understand that that's what they're saying. But for them to even proposed this, they're now having to go through step after step after step after step to try to basically overturn a law that they already have. And it's all partisan. I don't understand how people don't see through this.
And also to your point, it is costing the state $200 million. Imagine if you spent that $200 million to fix up the Palisades or Los Angeles or places that were affected by the fires, people that lost fire insurance because of direct result of Gavin Newsom's horrific policies. And again, it's so important to highlight his horrific policies. But the thing that doesn't worry me too much, and I think this is, when you live in California, you live in a bubble. I think everybody knows this. We live in a bubble where, especially when you're on the left, you think everybody thinks the same way you do. And while they're doing this, the Republicans have picked up 2.1 million more registered voters right now than Democrats. That's a big story. That's a massive story. 2.1 million new voters for Republicans. So, men, they could keep on doing this. And as I said with the Jasmine Crockett thing, the optics on it are not good. Gavin Newsom doesn't look good anywhere outside of the state of California.
It's funny. The Republicans think, that smaller government and a better, stronger economy is best for the nation. The Democrats, they're just doubling down and saying that they're not woke enough. If you hear some of these talking heads, I saw one yesterday, I think it was on MSNBC or CNN, I think it was, but they were saying that they don't have enough Mendomnis or AOCs, and that's the problem. So you have this deranged fringe that has taken over the Democrats, and then you have, it's the tail wagging the dog. Then you have guys like Newsom going, oh, where do we go? Oh, we need to double down on this. And then he goes for it. They are losing, and the response that they're giving these new leaders of the Democrat Party is basically that they're not woke enough, that they haven't doubled down on transgender issues enough. And what they're saying is, don't capitulate, fight. They're saying we're not fighting enough. So their answer is not to say, oh, where did we go wrong that we're losing so many people? Their answer is be more combative, stand up in the face of ICE and all that other stuff. It's a losing strategy, and they keep on doubling down on it. So let's see where that goes.
Well said and well done. And let's move on to this just broke. Trump's massive $500 million civil fraud filed by James was thrown out by the New York Appeals Court. This is great news. The amount of money is staggering, how much he would have had to pay for this is $600 million. And I just love that the appellate court overturned it. The judge's name is Peter Moulton, called the seize of the penalty troubling and question of the law James had used to sue Trump, which doesn't technically require someone to be harmed, had morphed into something it was not meant to do. Go on. And I love that the judge actually called her out on it. Do I think it'll affect her standing in New York? No, not at all. I don't think this matters, but this does matter going forward, because they will always use lawfare in ways that Republicans could never even imagine or dream of. And this will give them a little bit of a thought about spending the countless amounts of money as criminals are beating the crap out of citizens in New York to not do this.
Yeah, absolutely. It actually makes them all kind of look like clowns, and it kind of exposes the lawfare for what it really is. This $500 million fine was always ridiculous. To be honest, it was something that, think about, I just want to put it in other terms. We said 500 million. That sounds like a lot of money. I'm going to say it another way. The $500 million that they were going to make Trump pay never made a lick of sense. It was political theater dressed up as supposed justice. It never was. And ultimately, this is just everyone, the courts. At the end of the day, you can't run from reality. And this is just the world saying the Constitution still matters. Law still matters. While you tried to use this as a cudgel to get him to not run, not only did it not work, not only do you look like you used the system improperly, but just like the Democrats running away to try and prevent a vote, you failed. And once again, the optics look terrible for you.
Absolutely correct. And the lawyers argued that the case had no victims. That's what
banks
Trump's
were paid
lawyers
back with interest. Of course, they had no victims.
had no victims, paid back with interest. The most important thing to note is if I go into the bank tomorrow and I say, my house is worth $1 billion, give me a loan. Do you think they just give you a loan? They send out their own estimators and they'll do their own numbers. They don't trust you. The whole idea that somehow Trump scammed the bank by inflating the number and then paying it back in full with interest. And the bank said, I will do a loan for him again tomorrow if he wanted one. And Letitia James, the mortgage fraudster herself, decided to charge him and change the
That's
statute of
ironic.
limitations.
I love
right?
the ironic twist that comes with.
With her, I think Schiff had the same thing. There's a few of them that have been doing this musical chairs with the where you actually live to get the better mortgage rates. So this is great. They argued that Trump's federal, this is what James argued, that he fudged the financial filings and they were harmful to the marketplace as a whole. And Erdogan, the judge on that case, agreed. How that harms anyone is a stretch. The guy, they did their own evaluations on the property. They decided to loan him the money. He paid back the money with interest, and they said they would loan it to him again. I don't see how that's a bad thing for anyone.
And let's add that the Eighth Amendment, pretty crystal clear, no excessive fines. So you have no victims. You have a bank that has said, we were totally happy with what happened, and we will do the loan again. Everything was paid back with interest. Everyone did well. The banks assessed it before they gave it to them. All the stuff you just said. And the penalty is $500 million. I think we're beyond excessive. I think we're in Banana Republic territory with that. And I hope that it's not just a matter of this being thrown out. I hope that somebody is punished for it, because Tish James ran on a promise, not knowing what it was going to be, of I am going to get Trump. That's a quote. The case was her political campaign in a robe and a gavel. And the court saw through it. This court saw through it. It was pure partisan lawfare, not equal justice, and that's illegal. And so I hope someone pays an actual price for this. I hope.
You both bring up great points, and I think moving forward, Dems are going to have to think about this. But this is also, and Trump brought this up many times, and this is something that a lot of people don't want to talk about. This has a lot to do with race. This was racially motivated. This continues to be racially motivated. We do have a racial component in our country of people go on that continually talk about getting reparations and all these types of things. And as long as that sentiment is out there, cases like this will continue unless we fight back. And we have, thank God, people like Judge Moulton who say, no.
Yeah, look, the elephant in the room is that Trump is a successful, white, Christian, straight, conservative guy who doesn't bow to the left and doesn't, repeat the nostrums that everyone wants him to repeat. And if he wasn't all of those things, do we really think they would have gotten away with even the initial stage? Would we have had to go to a retrial and to an appeals court? This is a double standard soaked in racial and cultural resentment, and it's ugly. I know that people use the phrase reverse racism. I don't know what that means. Racism is either racism or it's not. And this felt like they were targeting him, not just for his race, for all of it, for his political party, for his race, for his religion, for his success, for his unapologeticness, all of it. It was just a way of destroying someone who didn't fit in to the intersectionality that today is worship.
Listen, I think that's absolutely brilliantly said. And man, again, I go back to this is something nobody wants to talk about in the case. But you had Alvin Bragg go after him, creating that. Obviously, he had that 94 counts or whatever, how many counts were allowed. You had Alvin Bragg change that crazy law in 2022 with the
statute of limitations, right?
With the statute of limitations on sexual assault. It should have just been called the Trump rule. You had a billionaire backing Ejon Carroll, and the whole thing is a mess. And this is New York City right now. And as we've discussed with the mayor, and people are shocked, I'm not sure it's as shocking. It was just the next logical progression when you have people like Alvin Bragg, Tish James, and Adams running your city. Mamdani was just next. It wasn't like a hop, skip, and this was literally the next evolution of, and Hochul. Going to that funeral wearing the head covering, the Muslim head covering. This is just, New York has gone mad.
Yeah, a couple of things. One is, it's not just the $500 million judgment against them. There's another $100 million in
interest. Yeah, I brought that
interest.
up
now. Yeah, $100 million in interest on top of that. You had a wannabe government official running for office stating that she was going to prosecute a citizen. So this is somebody that had an agenda. There was actually an agenda that was expressed to the public that is illegal. And the craziest thing is, I didn't hear a single Democrat stand up and say, this is a miscarriage of justice. This is not law and order. This is not how we run a country. None of that. None of it. They were all on board. Sure, go get the bad orange man. Make him pay. Make the orange man pay. So this is great. Finally, it's turning around. The country is healing. It's amazing.
And I don't want to reiterate the entire initial thing that happened with James, but there's something that people aren't talking about too. It's bad enough that there was almost a manufacturing of a crime where there were no victims and everyone was happy. It's bad enough
Well, Trump
that the
was the
penalty was
victim.
so well, yes, but what I mean is on their side, it's bad enough that they made the penalty $500 million. The thing that people forget is that they also tried to fast track the payment deadline. Do you remember this?
Yes.
And the idea was he could go get a loan. He's a billionaire who has real estate in the most amazing locations you could possibly imagine. So he could go get a loan that would cover this. But they also made sure that in fast tracking the payment deadline, they'd make it so there was no chance he could cover it. There wouldn't have been time for him to go out and do what he needed to do to even get a loan that like knowing that this would get turned over. Even they knew it would get turned over. I actually watched an interview back then, and I don't remember who it was with, where they were like, it's probably going to fail on appeal, but it'll be too late by then, because they knew they were weaponizing the system. Had nothing to do with law at all. It was about taking away his liquidity. It was about tying up his empire. It was about leaving him scrambling while he was trying to get back into office. And it was all of course, unspoken, hey, if you drop out of the race, maybe your problems go away. You know, they tried to pull a mafia move, but they forgot who they were dealing.
And mind you, all these cases did help him. I mean, with every case and every persecution and prosecution, his ratings kept on going up.
When they were this obvious, how could they not?
Right. But here's the thing. He got blessed that he got a great appellate court judge that actually threw this out. Didn't even, say, oh, here, pay $50 million. Literally threw it out. And that's extremely important. And this is another thing. And obviously, I'm sure there is an agency that probably does it. The amount of money that Democrats are spending on lawsuits against the Trump administration right now, and most of these cases being overturned, I would love to see the amount spent on this by Tish James. And I think it's tiring. I think it's boring. And I think New York is in the same bubble trap as California, these coastal cities, where, especially Illinois, where they're all in this like swamp bubble. And it's eventually going to turn, like Men brought up. There is a cleansing that we are witnessing. And it took Trump to get so assaulted, so persecuted, so everything go on for there to be actual change. I don't think change would have happened any other way if not for Trump. So God bless that man for waking up every day, because none of us, Men had a situation, we've all had situations where you're like, oh my God, I don't want to wake up for this. Imagine if you had to wake up every day with what Trump has been facing for 10 years since he got off that escalator.
You know, my wife pointed something out. It's funny you say. For those of you who do know, I was bitten by a black widow spider in an area where a Mediterranean black widow spider, an area where it's super rare for that to happen. People who have lived here 20 years had never heard of such a thing. And the way my wife puts it, because I have 2 kids here, is I took one for the whole family. Like, imagine if that had been my son, my 3-year-old son. Imagine if it had been my daughter. Like, I was the one who took it for the team. That's how I feel about what Trump does, is he basically says, I will absorb all of this hate, all of this vitriol, all the lawfare, all the attacks, bullets grazing my ears, blood on my face. I'll do all of it just so you guys can all see who they really are. And I think we all see who they really are.
Say what you want about the man. He's resilient. Most other people,
Resilient.
Everyone else.
I don't even think there's a word for what he is.
Everyone else would have backed down. They would have said, you know what? Leave my fame, leave my fortune alone. I will get out of this thing, drop the case against me. He didn't. He just couldn't do it. And he stuck in there and he persevered. And here we are. He's being
By the way, the
vindicated on all
irony of the
fronts.
whole thing, too, is that in New York, there is a slush fund that they've put together to protect the Tish James of the world on the
Yes.
other side. So I don't know how much money they've spent on Trump cases.
Taxpayer slush fund.
$10 million of taxpayer money
That they took out
has
of the
been
New York,
allocated.
right.
Exactly,
New York
the New York State
taxpayers
budget.
are
Yeah.
ponying up 10 mil. Potholes everywhere. Crime is rampant. People getting slashed and stabbed and burnt on the trains and all over the place. That they can fix, but they could set aside $10 million to protect Letitia James from a just prosecution. She was the one who said nobody's above the law. She's not either. Let them prosecute her. The taxpayer should not be paying for that.
Well said. And I want to move on because this is great. Sebastian Gorka, who I love, I think both of you love, who's just an exceptional figure. He's a senior aide to President Trump. He accused right-wing podcast host Tucker Carlson of repackaging the isolationism of Pat Buchanan. Sebastian Gorka, Deputy Assistant to President and Senior Director of Counterterrorism at the White House National Security Council, made the comments at the Hudson Institute in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday. He wrote, quoting, "This wing of isolationism is nothing new. We had this 100 years ago, and this is a poor substandard repackaging of Buchanan-lite isolationism," referring to Pat Buchanan. Gorka said when asked about the growth of anti-Israel, anti-Semitic content on the right-wing podcast over the last year, the Tucker right wing is basically, Pat Buchanan and New Guys is actually a shallower version. Pat is far smarter than this version of isolation. And good for Sebastian Gorka Golan for speaking out about this. If anybody can speak out about this, it's somebody like Sebastian Gorka, who's a genius. I mean, really, I don't know if anybody's ever many people have gotten the chance to listen to his radio show, heard him on Fox News, and I am so glad that he's calling him out because, Golan, I'll say this right now. I think Trump, when it comes to foreign policy, has done so much, not just for Israel, but for the world. And when you're a president like President Trump, you want your legacy to be passed on to the right person. And I will humbly say this now. I think the person he wants that legacy passed on to is somebody like Rubio, who actually shares his belief systems and will continue with the Abraham Accords. But take that aside, I'm very glad that Gorka brought this up.
First of all, I am a big fan of Sebastian Gorka. I think, as you said, he's an unbelievable human being. I think he's a genius, and I think he's on the right side of history. As for, let's just lump them together, Buchanan and Carlson. Woo! What a team! These guys, same disease, different symptoms, as far as I'm concerned. Buchanan used to dress it up as heritage. Carlson pretends it's that, but he just sells it as podcast clickbait. And
they're both very similar. They both defended Israel, and then they both turned when it became expedient for them to do it. The similarities, and I know Mend is not as familiar with Pat Buchanan. He worked for Nixon, served the country well. I mean, he really, and I've met him, and he was nice to me, is all I could say. He wrote a great book about Richard Nixon. But just so you understand, people understand who Pat Buchanan actually is. He's been in Washington for the past 60 years, and he has served our country, was a defender of Israel, Golan, until he ran for president, and all of a sudden went into pre-Tucker mode.
Well, absolutely. And look, when he started out, his isolationism, look, it still got people killed and it was still wrong, but he at least had an argument that if you squinted real hard, you could see the point. America would step away from something and it would allow us to rebuild internally. And he just forgot that in reality, when America retreats, evil fills the vacuum, which happened with Hitler, it happened with Saddam, it happened with Putin, it happened over and over and over again. And ultimately, all of his talk, I'm talking about Buchanan here, all of his talk about tradition and heritage, which were his two biggest buzzwords that he used all the time, ultimately just amounted to anti-Semitism over and over and over again. And you're right that he started off without that. And I don't know exactly what the moment was. I think you're right. It was when he was running for office, but I think it was convenient. I think you used the exact perfect word for it. His isolationism ramped up into something that would have damaged the United States, similar to how some of the isolationists today talk. And I know, men, that you are not for us handing out money to everybody. That's not the same thing. I think you're on the right track when it comes to that stuff, because you're saying we still can do stuff. I will sell you this. I will buy this from you. You'll still have money, but you'll earn it, right? They were saying, let's just build a wall and hide under the couch. Let everything happen, fester outside. And it's the metaphor I always use. I'll use it again. My neighbor's house is on fire. I'm not going to call the fire department because that's not my problem. Forgetting that the fire can jump to my roof and then I'm screwed. And Carlson's, he's just ramped up the Israel side of it. Hang on, I just got to point out, in case people didn't see it, Men sent me a video. It's unbelievable. It's the video where they're counting, where he starts off going, I don't think I'm obsessed with Israel. And then 600 and something mentions in the last handful of weeks of Israel, him and his guest, Israel. All they talk about, as Judah pointed out yesterday, all America first, but Israel on my mind. And that's all it is with Carlson.
Yeah, there's another video of him where it shows him talking about Sharia law, and it starts back when he was at Fox, and then it migrates to where he is today. And back then, he was all about the Muslim invasion of our country and Sharia law and da-da-da-da. And now he has made a complete flip. He doesn't say anything about the Muslim invasion of our country, and he's only talking about Israel, Israel, Israel. It's important to talk, how we got here. Tucker had a guest on who is now saying that we should have sided with Hitler. His last guest basically is making the case that the West should have sided with Hitler. So that's where we are with Tucker. He went from some guy who claims that he gave head to Obama, some weird thing going on there, to now he has people claiming that we should have sided with Hitler.
Well, this goes back to, let me just finish this up with Buchanan a little bit, just to parallels. In 82, Buchanan began to defend a Cleveland auto worker, and I knew about this case, John, I cannot pronounce his last name, Demenjuk. He was a Nazi war criminal named Ivan the Terrible, and he did not want him deported. And just to paraphrase, he was sick and tired of these Nazi war hunters. So that's where some of that started. He was very loud about this in the Reagan administration, and by 92, he had become full-on isolationists, and just these things started coming out, man. So it's a very interesting parallel to what you just brought up. And in Tucker's case, there has been an evolution, and obviously it's happened over many years because there's so much video of him defending Israel, talking about Islam. So the other day, there was a video of him talking about one of his shows, and I think it was the same guest, about, I want to say it's the Taliban, how they deal with drug addiction and people getting sober. And I'm not sure you saw this clip, and please fact check me, go on. It was definitely a Muslim group, but he was talking about their methods of sobering people up and how good they're doing at this. Now, we know in China that when people get killed if they're using heroin oftentimes, or they have draconian things for drug addicts. I would imagine the Taliban or Muslim groups aren't that far off, go on.
I mean, I haven't seen this particular thing, but I am not surprised at all. This is the same thing as when he went to Russia and was like, Putin's great on crime, and look at how clean the train stations are. The same nonsense, because Tucker's specialty isn't honesty. It is implication. It is like and I'll give him credit, he is an artist. He paints with a brush that nobody has when it comes to implication. He would never say, I love Hitler, but he might infer maybe Hitler wasn't so bad, or maybe I've been lied to about the past, or maybe the Jews are exaggerating. He would never say, I hate the Jews, but he would infer that maybe Israel's a burden, or maybe the Jews are pulling the strings, or he'd use words like neocons or globalists and wink, wink. And it's the same poison with a softer bottle. And all of his trick, it's like the usual suspects. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was plausible deniability. And that's Tucker's specialty.
Man, I see you smiling.
And on that, I mean, well said. You're on it. I wish we could stop talking about Tucker. The guy is just going down this slippery slope. We're seeing Megyn Kelly follow suit. Candace Owen went there. But the real question is, how much did it cost to buy him? What do you think they gave Tucker to get him to become pro Sharia law?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, Tucker already is so rich, just from his family, and of course the money he made up front. It must have been a tremendous amount of money. But once you understand how much money Qatar, for instance, if that's who happened to pay him, if someone paid him,
that's who it is.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Of course it is. But of course we'll say allegedly. If that's who it is, the amount of money that Qatar has set aside, and this is a reality. You can look this up online. You can see they're open about that. They have billions. It's an amount of money that is astronomical. Hundreds of billions of dollars set aside for influence in entertainment, in sports, in media, in government. And it's a specific unit of the government in Qatar that is built for this. And they pour more money into that than anything. Think again, Qatar has a minuscule amount of actual resident. It is a tiny nothing. It's like right now, I'm in my summer house. I'm in a little village. There's like 30 families in this entire village. That's Qatar, except they have an oil refinery on every corner, and so they pay for whatever they need to support all their terrorist friends. sense.
I just want to end this. I'll be honest, I'm not defending Tucker by any means. I don't think it has anything to do with money. I think this has to do with being relevant. And he found himself relevant in a very scary field of people in America and outside of America. And he will do anything to keep that relevance. Hence, Men's point of him having the person that claimed Obama did that. Now he's accepted in the Rogan circles. He's accepted in all these fringe places. So for him, that makes up. I mean, remember the fall from Fox News to where he is now. Yeah, he probably has more viewers and more listeners, but those listeners, I'm not exactly inviting over to a Passover Seder, and nor would I.
You and I will disagree on this one. I think that there's a financial component. I think it's also clear that there was a moment. I'm a guy who used to listen to Tucker's monologues. I told you, it was like something I wouldn't miss. I enjoyed them, and I wouldn't watch his whole show because it got boring. But that opening monologue always worked. Not a commercial break in sight. Straight through.
Well, you know
straight to the
why?
point. Well, no, I don't.
Because he couldn't get sponsors.
Well, there you go. Good for him.
That's why that he went in for 17 minutes long, is because he cannot get sponsors for the first 17 minutes of that show. I'm just saying.
Okay, but they paid him enough money that I don't, I don't think he cared. But my point is that there was a specific moment. You can see the delineated line, and it had to do when he went to Russia, when he went to Qatar, when he talked to the president of Iran. Like, all of these things happened in a specific bubble, and they got to him. And it's such a clear shift, as Men pointed out. He's completely turned 180 degrees upside down to the things he used to say. I don't think that's ideological.
I agree with Golan.
Transactional.
You could. I'm okay with being disagreed with on this. I don't mind.
And it's also worth noting that Rogan made fun of Tucker for interviewing that dude who claimed that he hooked up with Obama. So again, you see, as Golan said, the clear delineated line. When he changed, he used to have a consistent, long history of being anti-Sharia law, pro-Israel, which is pro-democracy. And now he's not. And you saw it happen with Candace, and you're seeing it happen with Megyn. And I'm let down by Megyn Kelly. I thought that she had scruples and she had a moral compass, but
I gave you a heads up. How many?
You did. And I was so hesitant to.
How many heads up do I have to give you before you say, Judah, I trust you already? We always have to have this argument. Then it has to happen.
I am saying you were right. I was wrong. I probably did not want it to be right. I was hoping that I was right and that she wasn't going down that route, but it's pretty much undeniable now where she's at.
And I want to get into this a little bit because we weren't specific about this yesterday enough, Golan, on yesterday's show, about exactly what went on in that interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene. We spoke about the fact that she claimed Israel begged her to go over there, but it was a much more in-depth interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene with references to AIPAC. I mean, AIPAC has become like the Soros. You know what I mean? You say that word and it's all of a sudden. So go on, if you could get into that a little bit, because for people that are listening and they're saying, oh, they're railing against these people. No, there's a reason why we're railing against these people.
I mean, so I did go into some of it yesterday, because it wasn't just that she said that they begged. It was that she said that she wouldn't go. It was that she said she doesn't want to learn. She doesn't want to be persuaded. But she talked about AIPAC being a group that suddenly she's like, oh, am I working on behalf of lobbyists? She made it seem like going to Israel, journalistically speaking, to see facts on the ground had something to do with being required to repeat certain phrases or repeat government press releases, which is, of course, not the case. The woke right in general, and that's where I'm going to put her into that category, like all the rest at the moment, sorry men, is just using whatever talking points they need to use to just smash the Jews over and over again. AIPAC is one of many, and they'll use the same phrases. It's always the same nonsense. And by the way, they're all lies. It is not a foreign lobby, even though they say it is a foreign lobby. Every single person at AIPAC is an American. So for them, I had an argument with someone, I think it was on Truth Social, in fact, where they were like, it should just happen. They should be just registering as a foreign lobby. And I'm like, yeah, they should, except for the fact that it would be completely illegal. And they were like, what are you talking about? All the foreign people in it. I'm like, unfortunately, every single person in AIPAC is American. They're thwarting us again. If you actually know real facts, real history, you can't buy this stuff. Megyn Kelly should know better. She's not just an ignorant troll online. And for her to infer that Israel controls America through AIPAC, or that AIPAC is pouring money into the government, she's just parroting Rashida Tlaib at that point with a whiter voice. We know, because we covered on this show, that put AIPAC aside, actual Israel, let's assume that you're right, that we're talking about the actual foreign lobby of Israel. Israel isn't even in the top 10, top 20 of countries that are pouring money into this country, to think tanks, to universities, and on and on.
AIPAC actually is like 198 on the lobbying list.
It's tiny. It's just
Yeah, but
conspiracy theory nonsense.
They make it seem like it's number one. They make it seem like it's Israel pouring money to influence American elected officials. AIPAC, in fact, is all domestic donations with a domestic team. This is not a foreign agent. If you want to, actually, let's go back a second. This is not a Israel or Jewish thing. This is an honesty thing. If Tucker was really about honesty, he would be going down that list from number one down. Qatar would be number one, and he'd be calling them out for their influence in the country. But he doesn't do that. He focuses on this one country that's 100 and whatever down the list. So that's where the dishonesty is. And that's what I take issue with. If you want to just, go against or come out against any kind of lobbying group, whether it's domestic or foreign, that's fine. I don't care. But if you're going to continuously single out this one and make it seem like they are the top of the list, the biggest influencers, all of our politicians are bought and paid for by AIPAC, that's where it becomes deceitful, and that's where it becomes dangerous.
Extremely dangerous. And Golan, thank you for doing that. I just thought it was important to exactly get into the exact part of the conversation, because when we talk about this, I really want people to hear exactly what we're referring to.
And can I point out something else about AIPAC too?
You've
our
had
listeners.
your time. Go on. I mean,
No.
How long do you need to go?
I just give me 3 more minutes here, because I think our listeners should
I'll give you
be
a minute
aware
and a
of
half.
something.
Go.
All right, I'll do my best. This is really important. Our listeners need to hear this, in case they don't know, because some of them are on the fence about this because they're being fed misinformation. AIPAC does not cover Israeli politics. I cannot shout that loudly enough. It is not a Likud PAC or something like that. It has nothing to do with Netanyahu whatsoever. In fact, they often criticize Netanyahu. AIPAC covers American politics through the prism of one of our closest allies. Okay, it is about how the U.S. policies line up with America's security and, yes, Israeli survival as a result of it. But those two things go hand in hand. AIPAC has nothing to do with the Knesset. They work on Capitol Hill. It is an American group working on behalf of Americans. It's an American grassroots movement that has Christians and Jews and old and young and veterans and students. It is not part of the Israeli government. So anyone who says that to you, if you hear that on any podcast, now you know it is purely a lie.
Well done, Golan Ramraz. And I'm kidding around. I love when you bring up these points, because facts matter. That's just the reality. Facts, nuance, numbers, they all matter. And I just want to bring up an interesting thing, because Joe Rogan had on his show, and I don't love talking about Rogan, and we've had this conversation. I think I had this conversation on the phone with whoever it was, and I was like, I mean, COVID really, for Rogan, for a lot of us, because his show is 4 hours long, you had all the time in the world to watch it. Now I'm like, who the hell is watching a 4-hour podcast? Who has time to watch a 4-hour podcast? But he had on this guest, and again, this is really funny. He had on this guest who he thinks should be the next president. He's from Texas. His name is, he's a congressman. His name is James Tallarico. He was a guest of his, and he's campaigned on getting mega donor cash out of the elections. But records show that he just received $59,000 from Adelson and the Sands thing, for the casino stuff. And Adelson's give to everybody. They're like Trump. They give to Democrat. When you're a builder, you give to everybody. But yes, this is Rogan's hero taking, not Hogan's hero, Rogan's hero, taking $59,000 and go on. It's just another level. It's like, be careful who you, when you interview people, give them a chance to show themselves. And this is a mistake conservatives make all the time. And I don't want to knock men for this at all, because I get it with the Kelly thing. But remember, in 2016, She went after Trump as ruthlessly as possible. You don't change certain things unless there's an incentive for you to change. And I just want to give one little example. I was invited to the Nixon Library to hear Bush. He was doing something with the art, a new art book or something. And I had written about it in the past about him writing these books about the soldiers that were maimed because of him and his art. I didn't go. I didn't go because what was I going to do? Walk up to him and say, I look in your eyes and I see your soul. So go on. This is extremely, I just love the hypocrisy, but it's on the left, so it won't matter.
Yeah, well, this guy, Talarico, by the way, with the T right at the beginning, if we're talking about the same guy, he reminds me of Mamdani. Because this is a guy who is really polished. Every line is perfect. Every story is prepackaged to make him look like the prophet of the new politics, just like Mamdani. I watched the video today someone sent me of Mamdani kneeling beside like a deformed guy in a wheelchair. No shade to that guy, but asking him questions, and it was just so manufactured to be like, look, I'm even listening to the less, what do they call them? Not able-bodied or whatever they call them today. So, and I'm answering all these questions and I know all this information that other people wouldn't know. And it's so clearly pre-written. It's so clearly manufactured. And all the comments underneath it were like, oh, my heart, I'm swooning. We need 1,000 of this guy. And I'm like, vote him in. You'll get 1,000 of them. Believe me. So this guy reminds me of the exact same thing. You scratch this guy and he is, Mamdani's got it up with his Islamist roots. This guy's doing it with the rosary as a shield, right? He reminds me of Mayor Pete a little bit, where it's like, I'm going to talk about the religion, Christianity and faith and all of this family stuff that usually exists on the right, but I'm going to hijack it and I'm going to tell you I got a Bible in this hand, but in the other hand, I got this manual that tells me there are 6 sexes and everyone should get their penis chopped off. So this guy is just another symptom of woke progressivism run amok, dressed up to look like some hip pastor or something of a community church.
Well said. And
Yeah, I don't even know how. I mean, we've talked about this so much, but to what Judah said about Rogan putting faith in this guy, Rogan puts out that aura where he's like, oh, I want the nice, kind person to be president. I would love to get money out of politics. I would love to get money out of politics. I would love it if they would cap that and not have these dark money and super PACs and all of that. It would be great if people actually did it at an affordable price and because they really love the country and they wanted to do that, not because you're going to get billions and you're going to make hundreds of millions after you leave office in all sorts of speaking and book deal arrangements. So yeah, look, the fact that this guy took money, they all do it. They're all hypocrites.
well, no, you're not a hypocrite if you take the money and you don't slam the billionaires. You're not a hypocrite then. You're actually just taking their money so you could actually win an election.
So that's more on the left where they go, oh, we're not going to take money from the billionaires, but then they do take the money from the billionaires and the banks. See, that's the deal, is that the banks buy cover the same way that Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post. And basically, as soon as he bought it, he now has a giant mouthpiece in Washington. And he could say, don't write any negative stories about me, only glowing articles about Amazon. And then you write whatever you want about everybody else. We don't care. And that's what he did. And it gets them cover. So you see a lot of these people signing on to whatever, organization that they feel will give them cover. And I feel like Rogan's doing a little bit of that, although I think he's a little more genuine with it. But if you actually came to him with the socialist agenda, which is, eat the rich, take their money and all that, I'm sure he would not be on board with that because he worked really hard to make that money. And it would be unfair to take his hard work money.
I want to tell you something, though. Golan, men that said we bring this up a lot. He's 100% right. We do bring this up a lot. It doesn't bore me in the slightest. And the reason we bring this up a lot is because this is our wheelhouse, is paying attention to what's going on. Now, I had sent this story, a similar story to somebody who's extremely bright, listens to the show, and this is not in their wheelhouse. Foreign policy is their wheelhouse. So they're not actually getting the same, it's like cross interests. So when Men brings up tariffs and his love of tariffs and how they work, I learned something. It's all about learning stuff that's not necessarily being spoken about, and not everybody knows these stories. Not everybody's familiar with Megyn Kelly or Steve Bannon or this cabal of people. They're just not. And their first instinct is to say, no, I love Steve Bannon. I love Mike Flynn. I love all these people. They're patriots, until we actually tell them what these people are saying. And so you have
But then what you're doing is you are not basing what you're talking about, your support, on ideology. You're not basing it on reality. You're not basing it on what these people are actually doing. You're picking based on vibes, right? These are the vibes that get up this person. So let's use Rogan as the example. Why did he like Trump? He endorsed Trump. He saw an outsider smashing the system. Why does he like Tallarico? Because he sees a good guy who sounds different than AOC and isn't just screeching all the time. But vibes don't run countries. Policies run countries. You got to see what people actually are doing on the ground. And if you're not measuring someone's actual record, you're just swooning after the feeling that you get when you talk to them. That's how you get played. That's how Rogan gets played all the time. This politician wrapped himself in this like charming veneer, and suddenly it feels really nuanced instead of insane, even though he's preaching the exact same policies as screechy AOC. He might be honest, but he's also naive. And if he thinks someone's authentic, he's like, that's my guy immediately. And it doesn't matter what they actually do.
Let me correct you on something. Rogan was not on board with Trump. Rogan resisted.
No, eventually he was.
Eventually. It took a lot of convincing. And that's because exactly what you're saying. Trump is not the feel-good guy. Trump is not the one who says the right things like Newsom does, but does the wrong things. Trump says what he thinks is on his head, and he does the right thing, for the most part, from what I've seen.
But okay, so Rogan saw a guy who projected strength in Trump, and now he sees a guy who projects sincerity in Tallarico. But ultimately, he's just convinced because charisma is credibility.
He was singing Obama's praises to no end, saying that guy was the most presidential president. Do you know when it changed? Maybe a week before the election, Obama came out and used the Fine People hoax. And everyone knows that that's a lie, including Obama. And that's where it came. Rogan was like, oh, finally, he's just a liar. He's deceitful. Welcome to the party. Glad you finally woke up.
Supposedly.
No, I don't mean the Republican Party. He's not a Republican.
No, I mean that's what got him over the straw was the Obama thing. Supposedly. I mean, who knows? I mean, honestly, he would have said...
I heard him talking about it, and it seemed genuine. Like, I don't think that guy's disingenuous. I think that there's a couple of things at play. One is his kids are in public school or whatever schools they're in. And the kids these days are all being indoctrinated with this anti-Israel, anti-West stuff. So even if he's able to root out 80% of it, they still come home and saying, Daddy, why are there so many dead babies in Gaza? Why are so many children being killed? And enough of that will get a guy like Rogan to forget the principled approach to thinking about these things, cause and effect, how it started, the history. Then they go to the emotional aspect, which is, I just want to see no more dead babies, not realizing we want the same thing. And the way you get there is by releasing the hostages and surrendering. That's how you get there. They don't connect the dots. And that's where it becomes a slippery slope.
The irony of the whole thing is, as we've talked about in the past, people fleeing liberal enclaves because they can't stand the policies, going to a conservative spot and then voting liberal again.
Yeah.
And then ruining the spot that they're going to.
Texas put up a sign.
Rogan escaped to Austin, and he talks. I wanted to escape the woke politics. I wanted to escape the authoritarianism. And then he's going to swoon over this Tallarico guy who's a progressive Democrat.
Exactly.
Right. And that's always the biggest fear when a Dem moves to a different state to escape, is that they bring their policies with them. The last thing I want to get to, and I'll get to one quick story of men's, but this is a very quick thing, Golan, which there's I love the podcast because I love the guests, and I have a hard time listening to it sometimes. And just because I get a little, I don't want to say bored, but the word...
Triggered? Are you triggered by Triggernometry?
I'm triggered by Triggernometry. And I think we could all agree, it first of all, you should never watch Triggernometry. You should listen to it. They have some amazing guests. And we bring up this thing a lot about PR. And men just brought, with especially regards to Israel, and they had John Spencer on 2 days ago or 3 days ago, and they had Bibi Netanyahu on yesterday. And John Spencer is one of the most knowledgeable people about all wars, about arm-to-arm combat, every single thing possible go on. And he's just not it's like I don't think you get both. And as BB said, we've been losing the PR war for 2,500 years. If anybody would listen to John Spencer, they would understand completely what's going on the ground over there. Or even Andrew Fox, who John Spencer disagreed with, but they're not. There's something that it's hard to listen to. And I don't mean because of the facts. It's hard to listen to because it's just not an action-packed show, shall we say?
So look, I happen to love listening to Triggernometry. It's one of those things
so do
that
I.
I won't miss it. Loved, even when I disagree with the people that they have on. One of the reasons why is actually, it's funny you bring Triggernometry up because it goes to what you were just talking about with what Rogan isn't doing. They ask very measured, honest, even-handed questions, but they do so because if someone is full of it, they will reveal themselves, and they often do. Ann Coulter revealed herself in a way that I don't think even they were expecting.
It was
when
embarrassing.
She said it was
absolutely
embarrassing.
I don't know if you saw this or caught this. Konstantin Kisin brought up this whole point about Yugoslavia and the map of Ukraine and the map of Ukraine, and she's like, I don't believe that, and he's like, what and she's like, well, she goes, well, not that I don't believe it, I'll have to look it up after the show.
No, first she said, I don't believe you. And he's like, what do you mean you don't believe me? And she's like, I mean, I'll have to look it up. And it was genuinely embarrassing. She kept saying things. No, you see, because in Russian, that word, and he's like, I'm Russian. That word doesn't mean that. It was just ludicrous.
It was embarrassing. And I encourage people to watch it. Golan, I am a huge fan like you, and I do listen to the whole episode. That my bigger point, Mend, is there's very few Douglas Murrays on the conservative side, even in America on the Republican side, as far as messaging goes. This goes to what I talk about all the time. And this is one of the things I admire and love about Charlie Kirk. He's an exceptional messenger. He knows how to get his point out on college campuses. And if Republicans were smart, they have invested a lot in Charlie Kirk. That this would be a huge thing, because when you listen to people like John Spencer, who is American, speak about actually what's going on in Gaza, you get the full explanation of it. You don't, as he said, you don't get the post-October 7th explanation of it. You get the whole explanation of it. So I encourage everybody to listen to Triggernometry. Let me rephrase how I said it, Golan. It's a show that you have to listen to and get through the lulls to get to it's like a television show. It's like watching Dexter. Okay. You have to go with the whole show to get to the end. They're exceptional and I love them. God bless them.
It's one of my favorite podcasts. Those guys are great. And the reason that they're great is because they stick to their principles. They're not going with an ideology. And I'll give you an example. If you're going with an ideology versus principles, a principled approach would be crime is bad. Can't do it. Anyone who commits a crime should pay the price. If you're going with an ideology, crime is bad, but if it's a black and white crime, slavery, reparations, it's okay. Versus, or trans on straight crime is okay, right? You get all sorts of into the muck where nothing is consistent. And that's why people get tripped up on that show when they don't follow like a clear guideline, what their moral like compass is versus just going with the ideology. So these guys, they're super bright. They actually talk it through. And I've seen the transformation of them over the years where they went from, it seemed like they were very liberal at the outset, and they've just through research and learning more
and
about
their guests.
Well, they get a lot of it from their guests. They have great guests. They've come to certain
I wouldn't even say they were liberal. They leaned, or that they're not liberal now. They leaned liberal initially, and I think that now they're more center right, but they're certainly not super right wing or anything like that. Whenever they get accused of that, they push back with examples. But my favorite thing about them is that they're open minded. Is that if someone comes on the show, they will break them down. And Jimmy the Giant came on. And it was one of the most destructive takedowns I've ever seen. The guilty feminist, what's her name? Deborah Francis White came on, and it was unbelievable watching just constantly. It was almost
painful to watch.
It was amazing,
right,
and
which
painful.
Many of their shows are.
But this is my point. Is that but they're ready to change their minds, even when they don't dig their heels in just for no reason, like a lot of the podcasters do. Tommy Robinson was just on the show. There was a follow-up episode where they said our thoughts about the Tommy Robinson episode. I encourage everyone to listen to it because it really shows you the idea of open-mindedness. They said, we both came in ready to look at this guy as if he was just a football hooligan that was a racist. And at the end of the show, they both said, we've changed our minds on Tommy Robinson because of the substance of what he had to say. And that, to me, is the sign of a real interviewer, someone who is not going in simply with an agenda. They're going to push back and ask questions just like they did with John Spencer, by the way. They asked a lot of pushback questions. The difference was John Spencer was able to back up his arguments, and everything in the end came out with their headline, what they named the episode, War Expert Debunks Gaza Lies, because ultimately they were 100% convinced despite their pushback on the show.
My bigger point to everybody was just make it through the episode. Okay. That's the biggest point I'm trying to make is it's not us. It's not a Rogan style show. It's not they actually give him tons of time to talk, tons of time to explain. And John Spencer, who is amazing, is not the most charismatic person, but he is an absolute genius. So give that episode a listen to. I beg of everybody. So I'm not knocking the show at all in the slightest. I'm saying I understand if people sometimes can't make it through something because they're not like riveted right away.
Well, I listen to it on 1.5 speed or 1.25 speed. It's on a podcast. I have it in my ear while I'm at the gym or walking the dog or whatever. It's fantastic. Another great episode of theirs is a guy we talked about before, Sebastian Gorka. He was on Triggernometry as we were driving to Vegas, and it was riveting. It was fantastic.
Great episode.
To listen. Really good episode. I don't think I've ever heard Sebastian talk before. You know, I've seen him on TV or whatever.
He's had a
We've
radio
really heard
show
him
for
talk.
God knows how many years, and he also was on Fox News you don't have those things, right? You don't listen to,
we don't have cable TV.
and you don't listen to terrestrial radio. I know you have AM radio in your car, but it's okay.
Might. No idea.
But that's my point of why I'm bringing this up, is because that's the whole point of why I'm bringing up Triggernometry, is simply because it's the anti everything else. It's absolutely brilliant. Go on. Listen, you're in movies, you're in TV. You know this as well as I do, that sometimes the best shows don't always get the biggest audiences because it takes involvement with the people, the hosts and the guests. And not everybody is always ready for that. So what I'm begging of people is to give people like Triggernometry a chance to make it through. It's a slow burn, as that phrase goes. I want to thank everybody that's been downloading this podcast and everybody that's been listening to us on Apple, on Spotify, everybody that helps us out. And so listen to us on Apple, Spotify, The Daily Cheat Sheet, Instagram, The Daily Cheat Sheet, YouTube, The Daily Cheat Sheet, Rumble, The Daily Cheat Sheet, everywhere. Substack, The Daily Cheat Sheet, except X, @TD Cheat Sheet. And of course, a big shout out and thank you to everybody on Truth. You can find us at Daily Cheat Sheet there. You can find Goal on there. You can find me at Judah Friedman over there, and him at Film Artist. And just thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and want to wish everybody a good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are. God bless you all.